What's going on, everybody? This is the third episode of BLACKChat. This time we got candidate for Lake County Treasurer, Anthony Manuel. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you this evening?
I am surviving, per usual, man. It's election season, man. How you feeling?
I'm feeling great, man. I'm feeling rejuvenated. I'm feeling energized. I'm ready to cross that finish line. I'm ready to finish strong.
For sure. You feeling energized, man? A lot of these other candidates, they coming in here tired and all that. So yeah, that's
we got to finish strong.
Yeah, for sure. So with that being said, can you talk about just a little bit of your journey that led up to you running for Lake County Treasurer?
Absolutely. For those who don't know me, my name is Anthony Manuel. I have been in banking for the past 25 years. I am a son of this city, Gary native. My role now is I am a Community Reinvestment Act officer. So what that means is that I make sure that financial institutions invest in communities like ours, not just take deposits from them, but actually invest in them, and to make sure that our residents have access to mortgage loans, our entrepreneurs have access to small business loans, making sure that financial institutions actually serve the communities that they're taking deposits from.
So you have a background in finances and things like that?
Absolutely. I have a bachelor's degree from Calumet College of St. Joseph for organization management. I have an MBA from Indiana University.
For sure. Can you speak to what the role of treasurer is at the county level?
Well, the role of treasurer does a lot of key things for Lake County. One of those I think is most important is that the treasurer directs where the deposits go that are collected annually. So you're talking over $1 billion in deposits that's coming into the treasurer's office. That treasurer makes that decision where that money goes to. And why that's important is because you want to make sure that those funds go to a financial institution or a CDFI, a community development financial institution that's going to lend to that community as well. That's actually going to make sure that entrepreneurs have access to capital so they can start small businesses. So it's very important. That's one of the functions that the Lake County Treasurer does. Another function that it does is, of course, is responsible for collecting property taxes. It's also responsible for the supervision of the Sheriff's Pension Fund. We do have investment advisor that manages that fund on a daily basis.
For sure.
For the county.
So speaking of those things and the way that they collect money, I think one of those ways is also the tax sale.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
There's been some criticism criticism towards the way, or geared towards the way that it's been managed, how we're the largest in the state, largest tax sale in the state. Can you speak to that, how you think we got to that point, and how you plan to manage it from a treasurer's perspective to where it's more effective and ran more smooth?
Absolutely. But first, I want to give a little bit of context of how we got here. Okay. For the listeners who don't know, the incumbent treasurer has held two of the county's highest financial positions for the past 34 years. What happens is, as term limits expire, our incumbent treasurer becomes the auditor. When those term limits expire, the incumbent treasurer goes back to that office of being a treasurer. So there is musical political chairs of this current treasurer being the treasurer and the auditor. So at some point as auditor, you have supervision over the tax sale. As the treasurer, you administer the tax sale. So we're not looking for any hidden figures when it comes to the mismanagement of the tax sale. We know for the past 34 years that Peggy Katona and John Patalis have served in these roles. So I just want to make that clear to the audience. Now, what has happened is that in underserved communities, low to moderate income communities like Gary, East Chicago, Hammond, what has happened is that they have allowed infiltrators to come in, politically connected individuals to come in and bid on properties. This individual, which I'm not going to name, owed $208,000 in delinquent Lake County property taxes. This individual was allowed to bid on hundreds of parcels in the city of Gary. While all that's going on, we haven't passed a clean audit. We talked about the dumpster fire. We talked about the unaudible state that the office was in during this time. And our families were losing their homes. So while we have a politically connected individual bidding on properties that owes $208,000 in delinquent property taxes, we have families that are losing their homes. They're losing their homes. Now, that destabilizes a community like Gary. So we already have issues with our infrastructure. We also already have issues with market values. But now we have investors coming in fraudulently entering the tax sale, and families are losing their homes. One incident is a homeless shelter here in this city that had to pay fraudulent fees in order to redeem their property to get it off the tax sale. Another one is a church in this city that had to pay fees to redeem their property from the tax sale from this individual, again, who owed $208,000 in delinquent property taxes.
For sure. So one of the things, I know you mentioned it, those offices being deemed unauditable, or not you, but in an article done by Capital B, they talked about how the state deemed some of those offices unauditable. Also in that same article, they talked about how some of those employees within those offices talked about just the morale of those departments. How would you plan to address those issues and concerns of those employees, or just create a different atmosphere within those departments if you are elected?
Well, the first thing I would do is I would sit down the chief deputy and the treasurer's office to make sure that we can pass a clean audit. The first thing I would do is make sure we become auditable. I would bring in a third party to come in and do a forensic accounting of what's going on in the treasurer's office as we speak. That would be the first thing I would do. I'm a strong believer in putting the best person in the best seat. And we would do an analysis and we would do a search to get the county's best to represent these communities. I will also look at reopening the East Chicago facility that was closed because of mold and never reopened. I want to make sure that people can understand their tax bills. Community engagement is one thing that I also want to bring in to this office. The treasurer's office should be a place of financial literacy, a place of community engagement, a place where people know everything that they need to know about their tax bill. So no one is confused. No one is in a place where they cannot comprehend a small font or not comprehend the fees that they're being charged. So I want to make sure that all of these offices are fully staffed and people don't have to go all the way to Crown Point to get full service from the treasurer's office.
So what about this election season, or while you've been on the campaign trail, has disappointed you the most?
Well, I'll be quite honest. Our local leadership, some of our local leadership knows exactly what's going on in that office. They know that the office has been deemed unauditable. They know that it costs taxpayers $2.8 million for accountants to come in and clean up the mess. And they remain silent. I would tell your viewers to look at those individuals in our local community that has stayed silent on this race, because they know full well what the stakes are. They know the damage that has been done to East Chicago. They know the damage that has been done here in Gary. They know the damage that has been done in Hammond. East Chicago, officials in East Chicago for a decade alerted these offices that this fraudulent individual was going to be entering a tax sale and placing fraudulent bids. Nothing was done in order to address that. So what has broken my heart is simply that our local leadership remaining silent and even in some cases teaming up with the incumbent in this race in order to give him another 4 years, which he has stated publicly that after this would be his last term. But he also said the same thing in 2022. So I don't know if this is going to be his last term as treasurer or his last term as auditor, because that's the history of this role, is political musical chairs.
I think that's interesting, Cause I heard him say it, like this will be my last term. You know what I'm saying? And he actually even spoke, I think, somewhat highly of you as well. So I guess my question would be, why now for you? But even more so, why do you think this is his last term or will be his last term? If you have any idea as to why.
Well, maybe I'll start out with the first part of that question. Why me? There's a culture of corruption that has somehow infiltrated that office.
Plague the county, actually.
I
Like
mean,
every office in the
it's
county.
it's corrupt. I mean, it's been brought to my attention that there is a federally convicted individual that's working in the treasurer's office right now. This individual is working as a tax clerk. This individual is convicted for committing financial crimes. This person is still actively employed at the treasurer's office. Again, I'm not going to say this individual's name, but all of this is public information. That's why I have this tablet here, so I make sure that I don't misquote anything.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that I say things precisely, so I make sure that the audience has the opportunity to research this thing, these things for themselves, and just don't take my word for it. I want to rid that office of corruption. This is not a political role. The treasurer's job is a fiduciary responsibility that should be looked at just as that. It's a position of trust. It's a position of compliance. To apply the science of compliance to this role is something that I've done for the past 25 years. And I think in the history of Lake County, for the first time, the most qualified person in this race happens to be an African American.
And so one thing that was interesting to me, and this was even like, and I consider myself to be like politically active. I hadn't realized that they kept switching like roles and seasons. I hadn't realized it. So when you put your hat in the race, and you kind of, I guess, realized it as well, or you probably realized it before, but I think that kind of screams corruption. And I'm nonpartisan. I can't. Black building leaders advanced community knowledge, but it's a fact. Like you said, it's all public record and all that. The fact that they keep switching, like, how can we get voters to see, like, I guess, the blatant corruption? I guess.
Well, I mean, the fact that you have a convicted felon handling sensitive information as a tax clerk would be that's a red flag. That's a blood red flag that, the fundamental ideas in the fiduciary responsibility that office was to maintain has been lost. Now, I don't know how this started. Again, this is 34 years ago. I was 12 years old when this started. So I don't know, was the intention for the auditor and the treasurer to become so close that they work well together and that these offices become in partnership with each other. And maybe that's how the musical political chair started. I don't know the origin of it, but what I know is that the challenges they far outweigh the expertise of the current auditor and the current treasurer. Especially in the unserved and underserved communities. When you think about things historically that have happened to us in our community, redlining, when you think about that, when you think about unfair appraisals, when you think about just being declined for mortgages and things like that because of credit issues and things like that, with discrimination, fair housing discrimination, all the challenges that we have up against us, we are subject to when we close our mortgage and we get the home, we enter into a tax sale where fraudsters are allowed to bid on property after owing over $200,000 in back taxes. I mean, the challenges almost seem insurmountable when it comes to our communities. And that's why I'm in this race. I'm in this race to level the playing field. I'm in this race because it's time. It's time to pull the plug on these political musical chair games that's been happening in Lake County for the past 30 years.
For sure. And then the last critique that I remember reading about is just how everything was like outdated, like systems being outdated. I'm sure you have a plan to address that. What are your thoughts about everything being outdated?
We have to digitize the office. We have to do things in real time. We have to allow even self-service for things to happen quickly. I mean, when it comes to a closing, and if you purchase the home, you know how important that is and how those records need to be updated in real time. Being able to get rid of the convenience fees that are levied on the credit cards in that office. Is my take that if you're using a credit card to pay your taxes, you're already in this situation, right? So you have to pay a 3% fee on top of that. Let's work with a financial institution to see if we can get those fees waived and possibly rebated as CRA credit to that institution. Let's see. Why can't we have a mobile app with our treasurer's office where we can actually pay our taxes through a mobile app? You know, we have to innovate, and I think that is the generational chokehold that's on this office between an administration like mine and the current administration we have right now.
Oh, for sure. For sure, man. I appreciate some of the insight as well. I think I remember telling like the audience at that event we had is that I didn't anticipate the treasurer's race to be as intriguing as it's become. We knew that the sheriff race was going to be the sheriff's race and everything like that, but I think it's the treasurer's race and the auditor. Is it the auditor's race?
Right.
Those have become two of the races that I've been watching the most. So with that being said, we talked about how people don't vote, especially the ones that's probably going to be watching this video. Mm-hmm. So what would be your message to them to get them to encourage them to engage, especially within a race like the treasurer's race, whom people don't understand the importance of?
If you don't get anything away from this interview tonight, I would say this. The number one builder of generational wealth is home ownership. And our wealth is leaving our community at an alarming rate. And one of those ways is leaving our community is through this tax sale. Vote to end this culture of corruption in the treasurer's office. On May 5th, vote a banker for a banker's job. My name is Anthony Manuel. And again, I approve this message.
I approve it too. You know what? That's BLACKChat. That's this installment of BLACKChat, man. Make sure you get out to vote. Also, it's April 5th, May 5th. And yeah, that's all we got. See you guys soon.
Thank you.